Okay guys, welcome back to part 4. What I've done just off camera quickly is put some of the Scale 75 Marduk yellow into the airbrush. Now this is a really thin paint. If you don't understand the Scale 75 range, or you could do with a bit of a tip on it all, the scale colours are ultra mattes, really heavy pigment ultra mattes. The fantasy colours are satins and much thinner pigment. So there's a time and a place for most of them. Just be aware, if you're using Scale 75 paints for the entire model and they're all ultra mattes, you will lose the contrast you require on a miniature to make it pop a little bit, because they will all be ultra mattes. So it's always a good idea to use multiple points of contrast, different types of paints or glazes, or dust the miniature afterwards with a varnish of some sort to return that to it, that satiny to it. Okay, so what I've also done is thinned it to such a point that I can really control its release. Very small amount of paint coming out, see? And all I'm going to do now is pick out certain areas . Just to make them pop just a tiny bit more. That's it. Just a tiny bit more. Okay. So what I've got there is tip dry on the needle, because the paint is thin and the pressure is quite high going into the airbrush, but very low coming out of the regulator, which means it's not as easy to blow it through. Okay, so now we're back to where we want it to be. Let's carry on. Airbrushes aren't scary things, by the way. I know there's all those channels about how you do it, and there's all those myths around them. You just have to learn the pitfalls of an airbrush and what the problems with them are. And once you've got those, you can pretty much do anything you want with them. That popped lovely, didn't it? Did you see that? Hopefully you can see that this is actually being quite subtle and not just like hammering colour on it. See that? That's tip dry. That's what these are for, by the way, in case you didn't know that. These guards are so you can wipe the needle clean. we're almost there for these now. So I'm quite happy with that one. Right, and then, sorry, not the camera. Right, there we go. That's the girls all done with their yellows. So now what I need to do apart from clean the airbrush, which I was just doing with the battlefield clean that we again have talked about in lots of videos in the past with the dunk tank. Now you need to brush glaze them or brush wash them, however you want to word it, with Games Workshop's. What do we use? We used sepia, didn't we? So the next step is putting a coat of syrup of sepia over the top of them. We don't want it to be super heavy. It will take away some of the vibrancy, so we need to be mindful of that. We also don't want to knock over the ink, as I'm sure every single one of you who's watched has done at some point. It's like a rite of passage with Games Workshop inks. You've got to knock one of them over and drown everything you're working on. Right ho. So where should we start? Let's start with the one from the very beginning. Okay, so just gonna quickly with a Winsor & Newton Series 7 number 5. I'm just going to run the ink over and stop it from pooling. So I don't want, oh, off camera, typical. Alright, there we go. That's enough. I don't want it to be thick, I don't want it to be heavy, and I absolutely don't want it to pull. I'm just going to move a bit further forward. I'll just move this camera back a bit further in the hopes that it catches everything I'm actually doing rather than me going off camera. Okay, so I think, you know, using washes they're just such an amazing tool, aren't they? They just really help to make paint jobs pop. You can't rely, well, you can if you're a basic painter, but you can't rely on a wash to do all the work for you. But they do make great roadmaps in terms of where you want to be putting your colours and highlights and everything else. Okay. So as you can see, this stage is not a slow stage at all. The next video I do will be doing the skin on these, but in between time of doing the skin on these, what I'm going to do is what I have to do. We always have to do, especially when you've been airbrushing, is seal the models. So I'm going to spray them off camera with. I think I'll use. I think we'll use Army Painter matte varnish. Actually, it works really well. It flows through the airbrush well with the right amount of thinners, and it does give a good cover, good protection cover. So I will paint them all up with Army Painter matte varnish. You see that it's pooling on the feet here, and I don't want that at all. We don't want big, strong, dark pools. And then the reason we're going to do that is because I'm then going to need to. Whoa, talk about overkill pool. I am then going to need to do cover them in white tack. So I'm going to mask them before I do the skin work, and I decided I'd do the trousers because I thought it'd be easier to mask the lower half of the torso than it was on the first lot when I had to mask the legs off. It might be just as hard. Sorry, mask the torsos off and all the flesh off. It might be just as hard, but I thought it'd be worth a try. So these girls are, and hopefully you can see actually from these, or not see more to the point, those conversions that we talked about, especially with the hair and the tidy ups and the sculpts, you can't see those anymore. The PVA glue sealed in the green stuff, so that's never coming off, and also the PVA glue smoothed any of the green stuff imperfections out that you might have had from using it, because nobody can smooth green stuff to the same level of smoothness that perhaps a cast plastic miniature would be. You need someone else over the top of it to be able to accomplish that, and that's where the PVA comes in, because PVA dries perfectly flat because it's a liquid and it finds its lowest point. So the colour scheme I chose for these was a bit batshit crazy really. I don't really know what I was thinking. I kind of just went for the orangey yellowy leggings because I like those, and then I went on the colour theory wheel. Okay, fine. Well, let's do purple hair then. And I thought what I will do is fade the hair from purple into a very toxic pink, very punk rock kind of pink. And then green is a great opposite accent colour, obviously, to yellow and orange. To the pinks. And then I will probably do pink weaponry. And then in terms of like the animal prints and stuff on them, I'll try and make them a bit more individual with different animal prints. Some of them utilising the pre-shades of the orange for leopard fur and stuff like that. Some of them will be, I don't know, zebra. Some of them will be random made-up animals from wherever, all sorts of different colours you can do. I want them to look really uniformed, but I also want them to look like they are individuals, because they're not an army unit, are they? They're psychotic female gangers. And the challenge will be me getting that balance right. Last one. So let's have a look at these then before I end this video on, by the time I finish rambling, probably 15 minutes, which is about as long as I like to do them, so I don't bore you to tears. So here's the finished result. Obviously the ink is going to have to dry, but you can see that it fades from, well, probably not on this camera can you see, but I'll try. It goes from dark brown in the recesses through a very tan orange. As the light comes around, it picks up in various points with the slightly brighter orange, and then it works itself up nicely to that translucent yellow. So you're left with a really nice set of contrast across the model itself. And it's a bit too much pooling on that foot there. Better get that off. It's always worth going back and checking them all afterwards. But you can see the fade is lovely on all of them. Good news is this broken one is now back up to the same level of prep as the first lot, which are all up there, so I can put her up out the way and add her to that painting queue. See that? That's pooling. Which means I didn't do a very good job of that bit, but luckily this is a pre-shade, so I can, when I'm doing the painting, I'll wet blend this piece out. Ooh. That shows up nice, doesn't it? When the legs are wide open, you can actually see the fades. You see, dark brown, dull orange, bright orange through to yellow. Nice. What colour do you guys think I should do the spikes on the tights, by the way, and the shoes potentially? Because the armour is all green, and it will be up to quite a neon green with its kind of highlights. And I was thinking about mirroring the armour on the studs, so that, you know, all the armour plates, whether it's spikes or whatever, are green. But I'm not sure that will work. And I'm wondering if maybe I should go for a different colour, like white or purple to match the hair or something else. So if you watch this, I would really appreciate your opinion on the colour that the spikes and stuff on the legs and the tights would be, because I am really indecisive about it and I need to get a move on and get these done. So these little spikes here, I want to know what colour to paint those. And you can see, if I grab one of these, you can see that this is just the base coat green, like the third coat of base coat green. I want to do 3 very thin coats, and then I'll start to work them up. So I'm thinking maybe green might be too much for the studs as well, so maybe another colour would work really well. I don't know what colour to do the shoes. I might do the shoes pink and the weapons pink, so maybe the tights studs pink, who knows. So let me know what you think. I would really appreciate your advice. Thanks very much guys for watching. As always, speak to you soon. Bye.